Do you want to mend a garment? This is a simple technique to create a long-lasting decorative mend. You will need a needle and thread, fabric scissors, tailor's chalk, patching material and a garment to mend. I'll also be using a seam ripper and a domestic sewing machine, but these are optional. I'll be mending a blowout on the knee of a pair of stretch denim jeans. I'm using the same stretch denim for the patch. You can always select a contrasting material, but it is best to try and match non-stretch with non-stretch and stretch with stretch. To prepare the garment, I'm unpicking the side seam. This will allow me to lay the garment out flat and make sewing easier, but this is entirely optional. If you do this, unpick from above the hem to the point below the pocket and hips. This is sometimes marked by a strengthening stitch. I highlight all areas of damage and areas where the fabric is weakened. Then mark out the area around the damage with about 5mm grace between the damage and the edge. I've chosen to curve the corners. This is purely aesthetic. I then measure out 1cm from this and mark another line. The inner line is your cut mark and the outer line is the fold line. Then, using your fabric scissors, cut to the inner line. To fold the fabric, cut at right angles towards the fold line, then press the fabric on the fold. To prepare the patch, lay out the fabric and overlay the cut garment on top, then mark out the edge. Add the 1cm seam allowance and cut the patch. I'm tacking the patch in place. With machine thread, I'll add a running stitch around the edge. I won't secure the ends. This thread will be pulled out once the mend is complete. You can use pins or clips if you prefer. I'll be using this thick embroidery thread for the mend. I'll cut a length of thread around the length of my arm. Using a shorter length like this will reduce the risk of tangles as you work. To secure the thread, I sew through the fabric twice in the same spot in the seam allowance, and then, from the back, push the needle through the patch fabric at the edge of the fold. Stitch back through, following the edge, then from the back at the halfway point of the seam allowance, push through and then under the previous stitch, continuing along the edge, going back to the halfway point, out and under the previous stitch, along the edge, halfway point and on and on. Don't pull too tightly on the stitch as you work, as you will need some stretch in the stitching or the mend will stress when wearing, and try to keep the stitch as even as possible, but this will only come with practice, something I need more of. To finish the stitch, I go through the seam allowance a couple of times and cut the ends. I can now remove the tacking thread and close up the side seams, and here is the finished garment. Find more sewing content on the Unpicker. And if this was useful, why not subscribe?